The late afternoon sun streamed through the museum's windows as I carefully examined the canvas under my magnifying glass. Another tiny crack had appeared in the century-old varnish, barely visible to the untrained eye. I made a careful note in my conservation report, knowing this seemingly minor detail could be crucial to preserving the masterpiece. Miss Evans. My colleague Sarah poked her head into the restoration room. Your mother-in-law is here again. She's insisting. I sighed, setting down my tools. Diana Lancaster, my mother-in-law of 3 years, had a talent for showing up at the most inconvenient moments. I'll be right there. I found her in the museum lobby, dressed in her usual designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Her lips pursed disapprovingly as she saw my work coat with its telltale paint stains. Emily, darling, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I've been waiting for 15 minutes. Surely whatever you were doing could wait. I was in the middle of a delicate restoration, Diana. The Monet we're working on needs. She waved her hand dismissively. Yes, your little hobby. That's actually why I'm here. Edward and I have been talking. My stomach tightened. Whenever my mother-in-law and husband had talks about me, it never ended well. Don't you think it's time you found a real career? The Lancaster family has a reputation to maintain. My son is a successful surgeon, and his wife spends her days playing with paint. I bit back the urge to explain that art restoration required a master's degree, years of specialized training, and a deep understanding of chemistry, history, and artistic techniques. I learned early in our relationship that Diana wasn't interested in facts that contradicted her worldview. I have a career, Diana. I'm the head conservator at one of the most prestigious museums in. Real jobs make real money, she interrupted, examining her manicured nails. Edward makes enough to support you both. You could do charity work like my friend's daughters-in-law. Much more appropriate. A group of museum visitors walked past, and I lowered my voice. I appreciate your concern, but I love my work. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to the Monet. Oh yes, run back to your little paintings, she sneered. By the way, I'm hosting a dinner party next weekend. Try to dress professionally this time. And perhaps don't bore everyone with talk about your hobby. That evening, I found Edward in his study, reviewing patient files. My husband looked up as I entered, his expression already defensive. Mom called. Of course she did. I leaned against his desk. Want to tell me why you've been discussing my career with her? He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture I once found endearing but now recognized as a sign he was siding with his mother. You have to admit, it doesn't look great. The other doctors' wives. I'm not the other doctors' wives, I cut in. I'm a trained professional with my own career, one I spent years building. Nobody's saying you're not good at what you do, he said carefully. But Mom has a point about the family image, and the pay isn't exactly. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I can't believe we're having this conversation again. Edward stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Don't be like that. Mom's just looking out for us. She wants what's best. For her social standing, I finished. Not for me, not for us. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then frowned. Mom's calling. She sounds upset about something. I left him to his call and headed to our bedroom. As I changed out of my work clothes, I could hear Edward's voice rising in the study. Whatever Diana was upset about, it was clearly significant. Moments later, he burst into the bedroom. We need to go to Mom's house. Now. What? Why? Something's wrong with her painting, the one in the main hall. I knew exactly which painting he meant. Diana's prized possession was a supposedly original Renoir, purchased at auction for $2 million last year. She never failed to mention its value whenever guests visited. What's wrong with it? She says the paint is peeling or something. She's hysterical. I grabbed my bag, already knowing what I'd find. Diana had proudly told everyone at the last family dinner how she had the painting cleaned by her friend's art expert nephew, who worked at a frame shop. I tried to explain that restoration required specialized training, but she dismissed me with her usual contempt. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to Diana's mansion. She met us at the door, her perfectly composed facade cracking. Emily, thank God you're here. Edward, darling, I'm so glad you came. She led us to the main hall, where the massive painting hung in its ornate gilt frame. Even from a distance, I could see the damage. The amateur cleaning had stripped away the protective varnish, exposing the original paint to the elements. Now, in the harsh spotlight Diana insisted on using to showcase her prize, the paint was literally peeling off the canvas. I stepped closer, my trained eye cataloging the extent of the destruction. Without proper intervention, the damage would be irreversible within days. Diana hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Can someone fix it? I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral. The damage is extensive. It needs immediate professional conservation work. But that boy Timothy said he was an expert. He works with art every day at the frame shop. Framing and restoration are completely different skills, I explained, unable to keep the edge from my voice. This painting needs specialized treatment in a controlled environment, the type of environment we have at the museum's conservation lab. Diana's face paled. The museum? But that's where you work. Yes, I said simply. That's where I work. Where I do what did you call it? My little hobby. Edward stepped forward. Mom, Emily is one of the most respected conservators in the field. If anyone can save your painting, Diana's lips trembled. But you said, I thought. You thought restoration was just playing with paint. I supplied. That real jobs make real money. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the deteriorating masterpiece. How much? She whispered. To fix it? I examined the painting again, mentally calculating the hours and materials needed. Professional restoration of a piece this size with this level of damage. I paused. About $150,000. Diana swayed slightly, and Edward rushed to support her. That's more than I paid for my first house, she said faintly. Quality work isn't cheap, I replied, echoing her own words from countless family dinners. Now, if you'll excuse me, I should get back to my little hobby. Let me know if you want the number of a good conservator, one with a real job. The next morning, my phone buzzed with Diana's name for the 5th time. I let it go to voicemail, focusing instead on the delicate work before me. The Monet's restoration was at a crucial stage, requiring my complete attention. Another call from the Dragon Lady, Sarah asked, carefully mixing pigments at her workstation. She's been calling since dawn. I adjusted my magnifying lens. Apparently, her country club is hosting an art appreciation event next week. She was planning to showcase her Renoir, the one that's currently peeling like a sunburned tourist. I nodded, allowing myself a small smile. The very same. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Edward. Mom's hysterical. Please call her back. She's threatening to hire someone from out of state. Sarah said thoughtfully, a rush job from an out-of-state conservator would cost her double, maybe triple your estimate. At least I agreed. Plus transportation costs, insurance. My phone buzzed again. Excuse me, I need to take this one. I stepped into the hallway, accepting the call. Hello, Diana. Emily, finally. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Her voice had lost its usual condescending tone, replaced by barely controlled panic. About the painting. Perhaps I was hasty yesterday. Could you possibly look at it again? I checked my watch. I'm quite busy with the Monet restoration. My little hobby. Please, she said, and I heard something I'd never heard before in her voice. Desperation. The art appreciation event is next week. I've already told everyone about the Renoir. The museum board members will be there, the mayor's wife. Of course. Diana's social standing was at stake. No wonder she was frantic. I suppose I could stop by after work, I said slowly. Around 6. Yes, perfect. And Emily, she paused. Thank you. I found Diana pacing her marble foyer that evening. She changed outfits 3 times since yesterday, her designer clothes doing little to hide her agitation. The Renoir hung like an accusing witness, its damaged surface clearly visible even in the dimmed lighting. I had Timothy's uncle on the phone all morning, Diana said, wringing her hands. He claims they're not responsible for any damage, says they followed standard cleaning procedures. I approached the painting, pulling out my professional camera. Do you have documentation of their standard procedures? Documentation. Yes, detailed photographs of the painting's condition before they started work. Chemical analysis of the varnish layer. Tests for paint stability. I snapped several close-up shots of the damage. Basic conservation protocols. Diana's silence was answer enough. A reputable conservator, I continued, photographing a particularly bad section, would have documented everything. They would have explained the risks, provided a treatment proposal, and gotten signed approval for each step. Timothy said all it needed was a good cleaning. Timothy, I said, reviewing the photos on my camera, should stick to framing. Can you fix it? The question came out small worried. I turned to face her. The damage is worse than yesterday. See these cracks? I pointed to a network of fine lines spreading across the canvas. The paint layer is destabilizing. Without immediate intervention, pieces will start flaking off. Diana pressed a hand to her chest. But you can prevent that. You'll help. I could, I acknowledged, but I'd need to start immediately. The painting would have to be transported to the museum's conservation lab today. We have the proper environmental controls, specialized equipment. Yes, fine, whatever you need. Diana grabbed her phone. I'll call movers. Professional art handlers, I corrected. The painting can't risk further damage from improper transportation. I can have the museum's team here in an hour, but, I paused meaningfully. But what? They're expensive, as is after-hours emergency service. Diana's face fell. How much? The transportation alone will be around $5,000. Then there's the emergency conservation assessment, stabilization treatments. I did some quick calculations. We're looking at about $200,000 total now. 200. Diana swayed slightly. But yesterday you said. Yesterday the damage hadn't progressed this far. And yesterday wasn't an emergency rush job. She sank onto her imported Italian sofa, designer dress forgotten. I don't have that kind of cash available immediately. It's all tied up in investments. The museum does offer payment plans, I said helpfully, with proper credit approval, of course. Though that would need to go through the board's finance committee. They meet monthly, and I believe the next meeting is, oh yes, the day after your art appreciation event. Diana's face crumpled. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What am I going to do? She whispered. Everyone's expecting to see it. The Hamiltons, the Petersons. I've been telling everyone about my precious Renoir for months. I checked my watch. Well, I do have some influence with the conservation department. I might be able to expedite things, get approval for immediate treatment. I let the words hang in the air. You would do that? Hope crept into her voice. After how of course, I said smoothly. After all, we're family. Though I would need something in return. Anything. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. I took the liberty of recording some of your recent comments about my career. My little hobby, as you called it. I think the museum board would find them quite interesting, especially given that you're now begging for my department's help. All color drained from Diana's face. You wouldn't. I also have the texts you sent Edward about finding me a real job. The ones where you called conservation work glorified finger painting. I smiled pleasantly. I think it's time we had a serious discussion about respect, don't you? \\. 1 week later, I stood in Diana's magnificent foyer, making final adjustments to the restored Renoir. The painting gleamed in the soft lighting, every trace of damage erased through careful, meticulous conservation work. Sarah and I had worked around the clock, but the results were worth it. It's perfect, Diana whispered, staring at the painting in awe. How did you? Just my little hobby, I said with a small smile. Though I suppose investing 7 years in specialized training and conservation techniques helped. The doorbell chimed. The first guests were arriving for the art appreciation event. Diana smoothed her dress nervously, then turned to me. Emily, I owe you an apology. Oh, I've been horrible to you. Dismissive, condescending. She wrung her hands. I was so focused on status and appearances that I couldn't see the true value of your work, your expertise. More guests were arriving now, filling the foyer with excited chatter. I noticed several museum board members among them, including the director. Ladies and gentlemen, Diana called out, drawing everyone's attention. Before we begin tonight's event, I have something important to share. The room quieted. This wasn't part of our agreement, and I watched curiously as my mother-in-law took a deep breath. Many of you know this Renoir. I certainly bragged about it enough. A gentle laugh rippled through the crowd. What you don't know is that last week, this painting was nearly destroyed due to my own arrogance and ignorance. Murmurs of surprise filled the room. Diana continued, her voice strong and clear. I made the mistake of trusting an unqualified person to clean this masterpiece simply because I refused to acknowledge the expertise of someone I should have respected all along, my daughter-in-law, Emily. Edward, who had just arrived, stopped in his tracks, staring at his mother in disbelief. Emily is not just a conservator. She's an artist in her own right. Her work doesn't just preserve paintings, it preserves our cultural heritage. Diana's eyes met mine, and I'm deeply ashamed that it took nearly losing this painting to recognize that. The museum director stepped forward, examining the Renoir closely. Extraordinary work, Emily. The restoration is flawless. Thank you, sir, I replied, feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with professional pride. Actually, Diana interjected, I'd like to make a donation to the museum's conservation department, a substantial one. Perhaps we could discuss establishing a fellowship for emerging conservators. The director's eyebrows rose with interest, and I caught Sarah's knowing smile from across the room. Later that evening, as the last guest departed, Diana pulled me aside. I had a long talk with Edward last night about how we've both treated your career. Oh? I tried to keep my voice neutral. He's agreed that we were wrong, both of us. She touched my arm gently. I've arranged for all those texts and recordings you have to be played at next month's country club meeting, as part of a presentation about the importance of art conservation. I blinked in surprise. This definitely wasn't part of our agreement. Diana, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted. My friends need to learn this lesson too. Most of them are just as ignorant as I was about what you do. Besides, she smiled wryly, it's time they met my daughter-in-law, the expert conservator. Edward approached us, looking somewhat sheepish. Mom was just telling me about the fellowship she's funding, and about how she's finally accepting that I married an incredibly talented professional. Better late than never, Diana said, then turned serious. Emily, would you be willing to examine some other pieces in my collection? Properly this time. I nodded, feeling the last bits of tension between us dissolving. I'd be happy to. And perhaps, she added with a hint of her old authority, you could explain what you're doing as you work? So I can understand what did you call them? Conservation protocols. I'd like that, I said sincerely. As we walked through Diana's gallery discussing the proper care of her collection, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about earning respect and changing minds. A month later, Diana hosted another dinner party. This time, when someone asked about my career, she proudly introduced me as our family's art conservation expert. And when I explained the technical aspects of my latest museum project, she was the first to lean in, genuinely interested. The Renoir still hangs in her foyer, but now it's accompanied by a small plaque that reads, Preserved by Emily Evans, Head Conservator. A daily reminder that real expertise, like true art, deserves respect.